can just chuck this around any corner faster than you think you should. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Toyota GR Corolla Morizo Edition. Only made 200 of these for the 2023 model year. And I have driven the Core before with the performance package, which from a performance perspective is essentially identical to the Circuit. And we're gonna talk about how this car today compares. Now on the exterior, the first thing you'll note is this really cool Nimbus gray paint job, exclusive to the Morizo. And it's like this satin, darker gray finish. I like it a lot. We've got 18-inch wheels all around, so it's a square setup, but these are forged aluminum, whereas in the Circuit and the Core, you do not have forged aluminum. Cup 2 tires, upgraded from the PS4S on the other two versions. And you'll note that there's no rear wiper motor either. There's also no rear seats, because they added some chassis rigidity, some chassis stiffening bars here as well as here. No rear speakers. Even the window regulators you removed. You got these cool little GR forged carbon badges there. Forged carbon roof as well, which I believe is the same as in the Circuit, but you don't have the big wing from the Circuit. You have a more subtle look, similar to the Core. Three separate exhausts, because we have a 3-cylinder, 1.6 liter. And right here, you note the same thing, forged carbon for the rear two windows. And starting her up, the interior is very similar to the other GR Corollas, but you will note you have a lot of Alcantara. Alcantara on the steering wheel, on the actual handbrake, the gear shift, even on the armrest here on the side, which I very much appreciate. I do think, one thing I've noticed actually is that when you have Alcantara on the wheel, it feels really premium, it feels really nice, at least when the car is new, because of course after some period of time, it gets matted down if you don't take really good care of it, and it gets kind of nasty. In terms of the drive modes and such, you start off, it's an all-wheel drive system, the GR4 system, right? 60 front, 40 rear torque split. I can press this button right here for track mode, which is now 50-50, and I can scoot it over, rotate it to the right for a 30 front, 70 rear, which is what I enjoy, more rear torque for a more tail-happy nature with torque-induced steer. I'm gonna turn traction control off. There we go. And drive mode, we're gonna put on to sport. We do have a wireless charger there. Not gonna put it there because I've noticed my phone will tend to fly around. 6-speed manual, and we're off. First impressions, this is a way stiffer GR Corolla, but not overly so. And I drove these both on track, the Core with performance as well as the Morizo, and I had a concern that maybe the Morizo was too stiff on the road. And it's a very stiff ride, but it's not punishing actually. It's well damped, and while you can feel the texture of the road, yeah, you go over a pothole on accident, you're gonna feel that it's not gonna be pleasant. Ooh, by the way, heel toe in this vehicle, not very easy because the pedal placement is, just not, it's too far apart. And then when you hit the brakes feel great, very linear, very easy to use, confidence inspiring, but your brake pedal goes too deep and then it's hard to actually nail the throttle, and it's hard to heel toe. So I'm actually gonna enable the IMT mode, which is the button right here behind the steering wheel. IMT is on, which is, I guess, intelligent manual transmission is probably what it stands for. And this is the auto rev match, which is actually a pretty good auto rev match feature. I tried turning on the auto rev match in the Civic Type R, and there were times when it was a little bit rough, whereas here it hasn't missed a beat. It's a great system, and because the pedal placement is so kind of wonky, actually my foot slipped off the brake pedal just yesterday. It was raining, my feet were a little bit wet, and that wouldn't have happened if the pedals were closer because I don't have to reach as far and really extend things. That part definitely sketched me out. With the Morizo, we make the same 300 horsepower from this 1.6 liter 3-cylinder turbo as in the other GR Corolla variants. But now we have 295 pound-feet of torque. That's up 22 from the 273 of the other two variants. And I believe they also tuned the engine in a way such that you're making that torque at a lower RPM. There's definitely lag. I'm not sure if you can tell between gears. It really spools up. You can even see the graphic here of the turbo spooling up, the turbo pressure. But it doesn't bother me because this is not trying to be a razor edge sports car. This is trying to be a sporty rally car. Ooh, I love those whooshy boy noises. And even in this 30-70 torque split and traction control off, if you go around a low speed corner and hammer the throttle, it just claws for grip no matter what. You can't break the traction. These Cup 2s and this GR4 all-wheel drive system are just so good. It's very similar to the other variants, and if you've watched my videos on the other variants, stability, 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 that's what this car is really all about. Has a longer wheelbase than the GR86 and even the Supra. I mean, the Supra has the shortest wheelbase out of all three. I believe it's around 101 inches. And that helps with stability, but also the way they've tuned this, right? The GR4 system, it is so impressive the way it just claws for grip everywhere. As far as inputs go, a lot of people are comparing this to the Civic Type R. That's the natural competitor. The transmission in the Civic Type R is definitely superior. It's a little bit more notchy, a little bit more mechanical, a little bit shorter throws. Throws here are quite long, as you can see. But it feels pretty good. I would say the Civic Type R has a little bit of a better transmission, but it's not like this is a terrible one and that one's an amazing one. This is still very pleasant to use. No problem shifting. You're not going to the wrong gate. There's no hesitancy, no ambiguity. It's a very easy to use, fairly mechanical and intuitive shifter, which I definitely enjoy using. Now the steering, the alignment on this car is a bit off. So when I'm driving straight, you can see the noon marker is slightly to the left, and even the 3 and the 9 and 3 positions are kind of tilted this way. So the car needs an alignment. But I love the way the steering wheel feels. Alcantara finishing. If you have larger hands, I wear size 8, 8.5 in the operating room. It might be a little bit thin. I do prefer the thickness of Porsche steering wheels. M can sometimes be a little bit too thick for certain people. This is on the skinnier side. So if you have smaller hands, you may like this more. If you have larger hands, might feel a little bit thin. And in this Morizo variant, I feel it does have a bit more steering feedback than in the Core and the Circuit. And I was taking some turns earlier before I started recording, and I could feel it load up a little bit when I'm really being aggressive, but when you're in that middle range of pushing a car at 5/10, 6/10, you're not getting that much communication. The turbo lag and the whoosh and the way it just shoves you in a very gradual way fits the character of this vehicle. And if you guys look at my Jubbal and Cars Driving Index, it's this rubric we have to score each vehicle. It's linked below every single car review video. One of the categories that I have is called congruence. Do all the various parts of the vehicle fit together? Are they congruent with one another? And I think if you're going for that, the rally car-esque kind of vibes, this does a fantastic job. It's just, the turbo lag is actually congruent with everything. It's not a problem. It's a fun, tossable, stable car, which for rallying makes a lot of sense. Not very playful, you're not really kicking the tail out, but the fun you get is that you can just chuck this around any corner faster than you think you should, and it just handles it. No problem. Now, no surprise, I do enjoy driving this more so than the two cheaper variants, but you can't really get this. They only make 200, and With the MSRP of 52K, I think it's great for 52K, but with markups, we know the whole shenanigans with dealers in the US these last few years. You're looking at 80K, 90K for one of these with minimal, they'll drive it for a couple hundred miles, call it used, and sell for a lot more. It's just not worth that money, right? You can get a lot more car at that price point. So then the question becomes, because this is more hardcore, more dedicated, more special than the other two Corolla variants, the question then becomes, can you get something similar in the aftermarket? If you add some chassis bracing, maybe you want to remove your seats from your Corolla, I don't know, practicality-wise. This might even be more practical. You can fit more things back there without seats in the way. Obviously, you can't fit other people back there. But I wonder if in the aftermarket, by stiffening the suspension and the chassis with these two bars back here, better rubber, lighter wheels, if you can get something that is pretty close to the Morizo experience, because most of us, 200, it's unobtainium, this kind of vehicle. I wish they made more. Love these noises. By the way, the car is actually very quiet. We're driving at a lower speed here, but on the highway, you cannot hear the engine. There's a lot of road noise because they reduced a lot of the sound deadening. It's actually 100 pounds lighter than the Circuit. 3,180 pounds, the Morizo. The Circuit is it's closer to 3,300. And you definitely feel that on the highway with regards to noise levels. The NVH is definitely harsher, but it's not punishing. But it's probably right on the edge of what would be too noisy for driving longer distances. I think it could annoy some people. Some people may be fine with it. I think other people wouldn't be able to tolerate it. When you're at lower speed, it has a really boomy exhaust that sounds like it's gonna drone. It sounds like there's something special here, something that's a little bit not your average, run-of-the-mill car. But then when you start driving it, I haven't experienced any drone. The exhaust is actually quite quiet. Same with the induction note. There's times when if you're driving it hard, if you're not really paying attention to the engine, the red line can actually sneak up on you. Although a lot of that torque is made lower down, like, in most stereotypical turbocharged engines. So you do start to lose a bit of juice as you approach red line. We have McPherson strut front suspension, and the front end still feels decently sharp. I think a big part of that is just the how much stiffer they made this version versus the other two. It definitely is a little bit more responsive, a little bit more sporty, not as much body motion, a little sharper front end versus the Circuit and Core. But when you're looking at this versus the Civic Type R, many people, the Civic Type R is a great front-wheel drive car, but what tends to happen, humans do this in all various aspects of life, not just cars. They lose nuance and they just have broad strokes of black and white. Oh, the Civic Type R is the best car. I've seen someone say that the Civic Type R is the poor man's, or not the poor man's, the people's Porsche GT3. And that is completely asinine. That car is great, but it is, no, dude. Just no. It's a great car for what it is, but there is corruption to the steering that occurs in a front-wheel drive vehicle that has that much torque and power to the front wheels. And then you have other reviewers who say that there's no torque share at all in the Civic Type R. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? So one of the things that I do appreciate about this is that you don't really have torque steer. This is still a front-wheel drive based all-wheel drive architecture. So even when I'm saying 30-70 front to rear, it's actually mostly sending the power to the front and only to the rear when necessary. It's an on-demand all-wheel drive system. And that's why we see that on the track, a lot of these will actually overheat. The all-wheel drive system just can't handle the taxing nature and the abuse, of multiple laps at speed on track. But it's not black and white here. I know when I was driving Eagle Canyon Raceway in Texas it was, and I drove the Civic Type R and then multiple GR Corolla variants there, I actually felt like the Morizo was my favorite. then the Civic Type R, and then the Core with the performance package. Because I felt like the Morizo was just that much more stiff and sharp and responsive and lively on track. And you could actually toss it a little bit on track. You know, you can't push your car to the same degree on the streets. And while the Civic Type R was very impressive, you know, there were some issues I had with things like the, you know, torque steer when you're exiting a corner and really hammering the throttle. And I didn't have that with the Morizo. But yeah, other than the torque steer, I would say the inputs in the Civic Type R are superior to the Morizo. The transmission is better. The steering, again, apart from the torque steer, is better. The seating position is better. Right now, I feel pretty, you know, high up. I feel pretty upright. And again, that kind of fits the character of the car. But I wouldn't mind being a little bit more in a sporty seating position, which the Civic Type R does have. Anyway, my friends, let me know what you think. I think it's a tragedy that they're only making 200 of these in 2023. Who knows if they'll make more, if that was just a limited time thing. Of course, Morizo being the pseudonym of Akio Toyoda, CEO of Toyota when he goes racing. And I love what they've done here. It's a really special vehicle, but you know, I just wish they would make more of them. And then the question then becomes, can you get a Core or a Circuit and then add some modifications to get close enough to this driving experience? Let me know what you think with a comment down below. Much love, my friends. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want your car reviewed, visit us on jubbalandcars.com and fill out the form on the homepage. See you in the next one.